Okay, cool. So we are going to go ahead and get started about wills, trusts, guardianship, and estate planning. If you see me drinking out of this, it's just sparkling water, I promise. There just weren't any regular cups left, which makes my bad and bougie self really happy because I mean, come on, like, is this not a complete aesthetic right now? I feel like it is. Oh, that's lemony. That's good. Okay, so if you don't know me, you probably do, but I'm Karina Nebula. Today we're talking about passing down legacy wealth through the lineages and what that means on a universal level, right? So today we're going to cover building a legacy on a solid foundation, the energetics of money, and how we align to empower ourselves in our legacy. What that means, both from the metaphor and the practical implementation of the tree of life, so our family tree, how we can plant deep roots, right? And have it pass on to generations, and our impact on wealth for future generations in both time and in space. So, you all have probably heard me explain the way that I look at wealth as a spiritual practice and how I teach about wealth building from every single step of the way. Not only is wealth the most feminine thing we can do, building a legacy, passing on from generation to generation. That's literally a woman's biological purpose. I mean, not every woman has to choose to have children. We all know that. Like, that's not the conversation at hand. But our bodies are designed to create life. And it's one of the most feminine attributes that there are. So collectively, we don't look at that from a financial perspective. But if we did for a second, we would see that there's a one-to-one relationship with our bodily system, the chakras, ancient teachings, and our finances. So, for the sake of the quick explanation, our root chakra is the emergency fund, a will, and a trust. That's the main topic of this conversation tonight. But to go through and for good measure, the sacral chakra represents things like life insurance or disability insurance. Our solar plexus represents all qualified retirement money, things like your 401k or an IRA that you might contribute to at work. Or if you're not employed and you're not doing a Roth or a 401k through a corporation and through a company, you might have a self-employed plan and a SEP, for example. In the heart space, though, we're talking about non-qualified money retirement plans. So things that are tax sheltered. And that's where we're really stepping into our heart space of like, what does it feel like to have the retirement of our dreams? And then how do we reverse engineer that financially so that our practical world can reflect that? Our throat chakra represents long-term care. Who's advocating for us at the end of our lives when we can no longer do that for ourselves, right? And then our visionary thinking in the third eye is what so many of us as women tend to live in, that 5D. I want the land, I want the real estate, I want one of those buildings behind me. And while you're at it, let's have me have all of the money in the stock market and the bonds and crypto. All of those things, that visionary thinking is made possible when we have a solid foundation that we've built on, and integrating it in our crown is our estate plan. So the estate plan and the emergency fund, really less of the emergency fund per se for this conversation, although it's necessary, but the wills and the trusts and estate planning really go hand in hand, as above, so below, right? So here we are at this bottom root, and this is the way that the energy moves up to the meridian points to the top. And I didn't put this visual, but it's like a toroidal system. Everything is always moving in a circular motion. And as above, so below, they go hand in hand, because whereas the will and a trust is the document that we sign and put in place to make sure that our assets, in the event we pass away, don't get wrapped up into probate court, meaning our house, car, all of your prized possessions and guardianship down at this root level, your children, like the most valuable asset that we have is ourselves and our actual relationships with people, especially our offspring. If we don't set up our foundation, the consequences are dire. Our children end up in foster care. It doesn't matter how much God Fairy Karina loves Zayla and freaking Kesa and Ani's children. You know, like if we don't have a plan and something bad happens, I love them, but I'm still going to have to fight through the system to be able to protect them unless we put the plan in place, right? And that's the whole purpose of these conversations. Like these aren't metaphorical concepts. These are literally our lives we're talking about here. Like I'm presenting to you formally, but I care about each and every single one of you on this call and the people listening to the playback. And it's about protecting literally our family, like our community and our family. And so it's very important that we do what we need to do to take action on these things, because on the foundational level, it looks like having protection from the court systems. And then on the estate planning level, when we do have assets in our name, when we are building all of these things and we've made it through all of those steps, it's the same exact process, but the integrated version. And instead of just probate court, we're protecting from the IRS, which I'm going to burst the bubble. And Alexis and I have been talking a lot about this. And I'm excited as we all individually continue to grow. You're going to each be seeing a lot more of each other. The relationships that I have with the women here are very foundational, very best friend vibes, like on the farms together. Like I'm excited to be being able to bring us into the same spaces and to be able to sit back and watch as each of your relationships blossom. And the reason why I think we're all called here is because we see clearly behind the systems, and that bubble that's being burst is the infrastructure that we perceive in the outside world as normal, but it's not. In future calls, we're going to be talking about things like decentralization from government systems, autonomy, and what does that mean in a new age? What does that mean in a financial world that's actually actively shifting from everything that it once was? And it already has shifted from things that we thought it was before. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong on this statistic, Alexis, only 10% of money in our system is actually backed by real hard gold, correct? Technically gold is soft, but you know what I'm talking about. Go ahead.
You're probably talking about fractional reserve banking.
Yes.
So when banks lend out money, they only are required to lend out 10%. I'm gonna be saying it wrong. So for example, if they lend out, if they have $1 million, they can actually loan out $10 million. So they have to have that 10% in reserves of actual cash. The rest of the $9 million doesn't actually exist.
Precisely. You put it perfectly, and thank you. And I know I wasn't necessarily planning on calling on you, but you put it perfectly. And that's an example of a bubble that's being burst here, because we were once operating on what's called the gold standard, where every single dollar, yeah, like mind blown in the chat, exactly. Every single dollar that we once had in circulation, dollar, it wasn't even dollars, it was gold. Money, currency was backed by something physical and tangible. It was designed on nature's law. But we've shifted from that. No longer do we operate in God's law or nature's law. Well, technically, the universe does. It still does. And that's what we as women are attuned to. But the financial world has been contrived through man's law. And it's literally zeros being typed into computers. And if they run out of zeros, they can type more. And that's the cause for so much inflation. That's the cause behind so many wars. And it's a system that's designed to perpetuate. That's not the main purpose of this call. But in future conversations, we're going to be digging deeper into that. We're going to be holding one of these webinars every single month, toward the end of the month. A different topic every time, but always creating a way to help women build their solid foundation. And then as we get to know each other, we're going to build higher than that. But we're all going to be able to bring people in to do that. And it will also benefit each of you. So we'll get to that at the end. But I just want to make sure we know that any bubbles that were here are probably being burst, but we can blow the bubbles too because like that's fun, right? The energetics of money. Okay. We know that time and space, they're infinite things. Our experience, though, is finite. It runs out. We all know this. But what about the people that we love? The children, our cousins, our nieces, our nephews, our children one day when we all end up with schmexy men who take good care of us, right? Or if we already have beautiful children, the ones that we have now and the future children of the lineage, right? The assets that we create today, literally, we're doing it. So hot, okay? They, Sydney said, yes, hot. Those assets, they define those babies' future. And when we align with ourselves, when we align with the truth, and when we align with each other, the actions we take not only impact, but they fund the legacies and in a positive direction. That's the goal. That's the objective. So why would the woo woman will? Because like I said before, we have all of these 5D visions. Each of you have shared them individually with me. As you get to know each other, you'll probably flirt with all of your ideas together. At least I hope so, right? And this is our way of anchoring that in the very first step for each of us. It's sacred. It holds energy. And we know that what we do multiplies. So we must protect our own energy and make sure we're channeling it resourcefully to protect ourselves, to protect the people around us, and that includes our children and the generations to come. So, like we said, as above, so below. Just like the branches of the tree go outward, the roots run just as deep. And so this is all in a digital download that you might have already printed. If you don't, that's fine, but you can actually utilize this to write out for yourself what this looks like. So these names, these boxes, they might vary depending on what your family structure actually looks like, and that's fine. And you can actually choose which way you want to do it. I personally think it makes sense to do the roots as the ages, the generations that came before us, right? Because they were planted and grew first, and then the leaves are the new growth. As a take-home activity, I would recommend writing down, there might be two names technically here. It depends on who's alive and who's not still. For me, for example, and for most people, there might be one elder still remaining. The other one might have passed away, or maybe they were never in the picture. You might want to add a box if there are two, or if there are assets that are still relevant. Now we're looking at this from like a cutesy kind of perspective, but what we're really doing is writing out our actual family line, like what our trust or our will actually looks like from an estate planning perspective, from an asset planning perspective. So for example, my grandfather just got put into hospice. He did that by choice. I'm not very emotionally attached to this anecdote because I'm not really close to him. I'm a lot closer to my parents. He never really had much of a relationship in our lives. But of course, I'm glad that he's getting good care. And I'm glad that my dad is, being able to step up and take care of his father. My grandmother, though, his wife, she's been gone a long time. So, for example, we would put Grandpa Bill's name. He's still here. And then we would put both of my parents or my uncle and my aunt and my father, however I wanted to look at it. That's the next generation. Then there's me, my brother, my sister, their kids. I don't have children yet, but my cousins had children, so we would put them here. And then I actually have cousins whose kids have had kids. So as it's very self-explanatory, you've seen these things before. But the reason we're doing this now is to be able to track the assets, to understand like from an income perspective and an actual asset management perspective, like whether it's real estate, land, property, whatever it is, who is getting what and why. And usually there's a reason behind it. Like there might be that one cousin that like is a good partier and a fun time, but like you don't want to trust them with the things that you own. Or there might be the person that is like a little bit estranged. Or yeah, everyone's family has that. And there's no shame in it. But it's important that we know these things, but how often do we actually write it down? And then on top of that, how often do we write their age beside it? And then beyond that, how often do we engage in the conversations? Because there are different roles and responsibilities that come with each of these things within our family tree. If the family itself is not relevant, what does it look like from a community building standpoint? If it's not biological, the people you want to pass these assets down to, who would you want to? If you don't know who you would want to, but you crave that community building, who might you need to become to build and form those kinds of relationships with people that you can plan ahead to have that? We're still very young and we're very capable people. So we can formulate those relationships and we're just on the cusp of that greatness, right? So it's us putting it from our brains down on paper so it can become reality and structuring it because some people, like for example, my brother is a lawyer. He's probably going to have legal say in a lot of things that end up happening with all of our assets. At least I would hope so, right? I'm a very business savvy person. If there's a succession plan that's happening within our lineage, like that information should be run by me. But those don't happen. Those things don't happen without engaging in the conversations. And these conversations are uncomfortable to begin with. That's the whole point of doing this is to enable each of us to actually know what that looks like and to be able to have me and my team of professionals support each of us within the process. Alexis started a little bit of what that looks like, and maybe she'll want to share at the end of what the back end kind of seems like. Megan has met some of the people that I'm working with. You know, Sydney and I have initiated that process. Anya and I have begun discussing that. These are all, everyone has a different situation and circumstance. I'm not going to share those circumstances here. It's private. But the point is, there's a place to start within each of those things. So those are all things to consider, and I'll leave you all to do that as homework. And there's going to be a section for us to do like question and answer and dialogue in a few minutes. So I'll just keep going through the presentation and then we can stop it. If there's anything pressing as I'm presenting, just make a note of it or like bookmark it in your mind or in the chat so we know to come back to it. So are you sick of my voice yet? I don't think so. Okay. The definitions that we should know from this conversation may be self-explanatory, but I'm never going to make the assumption, especially not in the finance tech bro jargon world that we live in. So a last will and testament. This is how we direct our assets to be distributed to our beneficiaries. A beneficiary is the person who receives, also named the trusted decision makers. So there's the executor of the estate, the person who makes the actual decisions around assets. Then there's the healthcare proxy, the people who, like, for example, my mom is professionally a healthcare proxy for work. She makes decisions for people during the long-term care phase of their life, that throat chakra we talked about before. She advocates for them and makes decisions on their behalf in the event they're incapacitated, have a DND, do not disturb. I meant to say do not resuscitate. My sister would be shaking her head right now. My sister is a charge nurse. So she is actively there seeing people in these end of life situations all the time too. My mom is the person that says, no, don't intubate him. That is against his wishes. Or, you know, contacting the family if they are not accessible for whatever reason. She's that person. And we name those people in this process who we want to be making those decisions for ourselves. Because, like, my family is the perfect example. My brother is great with law, but I might want my sister, the licensed like the actual medical professional to be making those kinds of decisions on my behalf, you know? So we have different people in our lives that do different things. We're not just going to lump them all together. Or worse, have nobody make the decisions and have it be a stranger like my mom to her patients because we didn't make a decision at all. Like if we don't have a plan, the government systems have a plan for us. And it's not a good one. And it's not a well-funded one. And it's not usually in our best interests. So I'm not gonna like stay on my soapbox, but like you get the point. Let's get through the definition list. So I sort of mentioned a couple of these. So the Advanced Healthcare Directive, right, is the individual making healthcare decisions. If we're incapacitated, we leave instructions and end of life plans, right? The nomination of guardianship. You've probably known, you know this word, like who is in charge of the kiddos if something happens to you. You might not want it to be the estranged father or, you know, the abusive grandma or whoever it is. Like those people in the legal system would be the next person to take the child if there's not a plan. But if that's not resonant with the life you're creating for them, we can just direct it differently. And then there's the trust conversation. So there's your will, which is the basic planning of our possessions and the people who are closest to us, like our children, as well as our own health decisions. And then there's our trust, which is what holds our assets and says how we want those things to be distributed. So the will is embedded in the workflow of the trust through the systems that we utilize. So we don't draft them separately, but we don't have to draft both of them in the process of creating them. And I'll get into like what that looks like in our sphere of what we can co-create together at the end of this. A question that people ask a lot is the difference between an individual revocable trust, a joint revocable trust, and revocable versus irrevocable jargon. The individual is in joint are pretty easily explained differently. Like joint is if you have more than one person. If you're married or if you have a partner and you're jointly doing that together. Revocable versus irrevocable is mostly determined by net worth and income. So the price to upkeep an irrevocable trust is much higher. So unless there's a more complicated system, usually a revocable trust is sufficient. Case by case, we wouldn't make a recommendation for any of the people here without actually meeting with you and going through the process. But as a base level, a revocable trust is probably what most people need. So insurance policies, we've probably all individually discussed that those are the kinds of assets that actually fund the beneficiary upon death. And then we structure a lot of these things to have a cash value that we can actually leverage within our lifetime. We can talk about that another time. It's not the purpose of this. That's sacral chakra stuff. We're in the root. But the insurance policies are a big part of it because if you have a whole life or a cash value type of policy, it automatically creates an estate plan that is one and the same. So they do go together. Obviously, we all have really beautiful hearts, so charitable giving is another part of this. And letters of interest are the kinds of language and things we actually want to leave behind in our own words as a part of this as well. And then the beneficiary designations go in with all of this. Again, the beneficiary is the person who receives these things in the end. So what you know is what they inherit, right? We transfer more than assets. We're transferring our wisdom, and that's part of this. I'm super excited because I have been partnering with like the best people in Manhattan. Like, I'm really not exaggerating when I say that. In terms of the kind of companies I'm appointed with, it's the number one people out there for everything that they do. And the relationships that I've been building with my business partners, I'm so grateful for because I'm personally very supported. And in turn, all of my network is becoming extremely supported as well with the best knowledge that's in the industry. So we have a partnership with wealth.com. That's a cool website name. Like what? Who owns that? And they're the number one estate planning tool. And as a financial advisor, a license, I'm able to have a partnership with them. And so I do. And Rich, my business partner, through his company, Strategic Insurance Consultants, has appointed me as well to be able to have access to all of his network to assist in these kinds of plans as well. And so this world is a little bit different than the insurance world because we're able to have a little bit more autonomy in how we operate. And they're just different kinds of assets, but they go hand in hand. And so this partnership is beautiful because they don't, wealth.com, they're not accessible to the everyday person. Only advisors can work with them. So us being able to utilize this tool gives access to people in my network to do it themselves. But as a regular like person without licenses, that is not accessible to you all. So I'm grateful because I'm a conduit within this. And you're enabled to actually build all of these estate plans yourselves through our strategic insurance consulting. And so I'm really grateful for being able to do that. A couple of differences structurally. Some of you already know we have worked together, a few of us. If we haven't yet, we might at some point on an insurance level. I don't charge for those services because the insurance company pays me. This is different than that. And I'll explain. But first, I want to just show you these pictures because you know who I am, but like, how cute are these? Because it's a women's world and we're taking everything in stride, I wanted to show you the view outside of my window. No, I'm just kidding. But like how cute and sparkly is that little Empire State Building? Not quite this view outside of this window, but the view outside of that window is pretty close to that view actually. And then like we literally are becoming the rich men, period. So this is the slide that I thought was next, but like cute little teaser and break in between. So working with an estate lawyer to create these things, we have to pay at minimum $5,000. Anybody would have to. But through our partnerships, we're able to advise everyone to do it themselves at much lower rates. So these fees are mostly us paying for the tool. And then the advisory does go along with it. So compared to the $5,000 that it would normally cost for us to put all of these things together at minimum, even just for the will alone, we're able to create the will for $1,250 if it's a lump sum, or $1,500 split over 2 payments, which is $750 twice over 2 months. And then if we're doing the will and the trust, which is mostly important if we have like LLCs and businesses in place, which most of us do, other assets as well, like our life insurance and things like that are a part of it. Wills are the most important whenever we have children and people in our lives to pass them down to. But again, these are bundled things. So it's like not so much an either or. If we do those split over the 2 months, it's $1,900, $950 twice. If those prices, for whatever reason, are not doable for you, talk to me separately, privately, because there's always something we can do, but these really are the standards, and it's as pretty much as close to cutting the cost of what it costs us to have the partnership with wealth.com as possible. That's like the goal, is to make it as inexpensive as possible for the consumer so that we can have these things and we don't have to pay for the estate planning lawyer, but we know that everything is secured. Regardless, this is what that looks like. And if you have questions, like I said, we'll talk separately, individually. One of the things that I want to do to make this most easy for you all, and this is my last point before we get into discussion and question and answer and all of that juicy stuff. My goal, for one, is to be the woman that people can go to do this. It's so important. I'm seeing it more and more every single day. I'm not interested in just signing people up for life insurance. Like that doesn't sit right with me. Obviously, life insurance is a necessary tool, but if I'm helping women who don't have a plan for their children, like who's taking care of them, that is a problem. And you'd be shocked. Like I'm in New York. I'm literally just came from the Downtown Magazine event. The conversations with the people are hugging me. I just met them 5 minutes ago, like on the verge of tears, talking about their father and how great he was and how sad it was that things weren't in place and their daughters and how grateful they are that like someone like me is someone that they can talk to. High earning women, lots of assets in their portfolio, some of them married, some of them not, don't necessarily have a plan for their kids. It's crazy. Like if we don't sign a piece of paper, everything gets stripped from us. And that's just the truth. So, like, it's something that I think it's been communicated to you, the need, but I also want to make this something that all the women around us know that there's a hub here for us to build these things together. And I want to incentivize each of you to be actually able to bring people in. And so if there are, and I don't like the like MLM structure or anything like that. That's not the reason that that's being designed here. But my goal is to be able to, if there are people that you know that would benefit from this kind of support, if they move forward with this, it will help offset the cost for each of you to also put these things together by paying you a percentage. So a strategy behind this would be like, do I know 10 people that should know Karina or who would have benefited from this kind of conversation tonight? And inviting them, if they genuinely need foundational support, to the webinar that we'll be doing and I'm committing to do every month. And then allowing them the opportunity to move forward if that resonates with them. And if they do, then net 30, depending on how they decide to move forward with the payment plan, whether it's 2 months or whatever, will depend. But you'll get a 10% kickback. So 10% of 1250 is 125 bucks. 10% of 1,750 is 175 bucks. 10%, 190 bucks, 150 bucks. It's something. It's not everything, but it's something. And if you are also creating these things for you and for your family, like that starts to get less and less expensive if you invite 1, 2 people, right? So my goal with this is one, to make it more accessible for more people through all of you actively inviting people as well, if it resonates. And to be able to offset some of these costs for you all, because I know that it's definitely less than 5,000, but it's still money. And some of you have kids to feed, you know? So hopefully that's something that you feel like could help. Now, let's talk. Please feel free to unmute, give any kind of feedback, give any kind of questions you might have of any point from what we've just looked at and learned today. Mm.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
I don't know. Okay. I'm in like in a bad cell service spot. This is from ceiling. Hi. Hold on.
Zayla decided to walk in the second you unmute. Classic. I don't know if she's about to unmute again, but maybe Alexis, if you wanted to weigh in on just what it like, since you've seen the back end of what it looks like on wealth.com, that might be something that would be beneficial as well.
Yeah, so I think it's first of all like very user friendly. It doesn't look like one of those like old, outdated websites. It's very like easy to use. Um, so you like go in there, you answer a bunch of questions. They may be like specific to your situation. And then based off of your responses, it will give you like recommendations as to like what trust or like what trust setup will be right for you. And then it also kind of educates you as well. On the different like the different trusts. I know she kind of went over some of the like the terminology and definitions of, but it's like a lot that goes with it as well, like a lot more. So it's really easy to use. And the fact that it's like it's DIY, like
Mhm.
it makes you feel empowered. It comes from like an empowering place because you're sitting there and you're not just giving it to someone else and have them doing it and trusting what they're saying. You're actually educating yourself as well. So I really enjoyed it was a nice platform. It was, like I said, it was easy to use. So
That's such a big deal. You're right. And usually what happens if you do end up working with one of those lawyers, which I'm not knocking it. Like if people have a special needs child, they need to work with a lawyer. If they have like a lot of assets that are more particular, yes, we're talking about wealth.com, Megan, when she's talking about the user-friendly stuff. She's already started the process of working on the back end, so she knows what it looks like. Um, and yeah, usually though, like it's not always necessary to work with a lawyer for these kinds of things. And through this, you're getting access to DIY, but with mine and my team's advisory alongside it. So it's not like you're doing it by yourself, but you also have access to us from a financial standpoint of like guiding you in the right direction. Or if there are questions that we know the answers to, then we're able to help. Or if you do need access to a lawyer, we have people in our network that we can help work with. Chances are for everything that each of us are doing right now, or even whenever we have higher net worths and more assets, it's not always necessary. So being able to see very clearly all of the definitions, like Alexis said, is great, and it's extremely user friendly in the sense that it's like the UX is wonderful. Like it's buttons that pop up with definitions. It's like nice, chic technology. The AI is strong and the interface is strong. And also, whenever it's done, it prints in a beautiful, like actual binder. And it has definitions of everything and explanations every step of the way. So even the people that are handed the documentation when we are gone will understand what everything means. And that's not the way that it's usually set up from a legalese. Like that's very different than what typically ends up coming to somebody from a working with a lawyer's type of, will or trust. So it's definitely very user friendly. I loved that point. Thank you, Alexis. Ani, if you're in a place to unmute, you're welcome to now.
Sorry, I'm not. My children just hurt themselves. So just give me a second.
It's all good. Classic. Megan, did you want to say anything or have any questions? Or Sydney, either one of you.
Yeah, it's something that I am extremely interested in starting the process of is like setting up at least the will aspect of it, the living will, and the medical directives and all of that. And we've talked about this, but it's something that with health and chronic illness and all of that kind of stuff is so important to me, and with my family history of certain illnesses, like it's like the biggest priority in my life at the moment. So like everything I'm doing right now, as far as like paying off debt and like saving up money, is going to be for the purpose of like being able to pay $1,500 to have a will set up in the next, by the end of Q4 of this year, and like and setting up all of the stepping stones to get to a place where I feel like I am holistically taken care of in life and in death. So
Yeah, that's so important and very beautifully said. And I think you're representing a whole demographic of people that I'm so grateful through our conversations, you helped me realize how important it is to be included within this. Because it's not just for moms or the rich aunties. Like, there are a lot of reasons why a person would want, even a young person, would want to set up these things in advance. Like, illness is a very real thing, and we never, like, it doesn't have a face. That's the thing. Like, some illnesses, we don't anticipate someone is battling or working through, or however you want to put it. And yet it's a part of their everyday life. And so making sure we create a space within that here is really important. So I'm grateful for you communicating that, you articulating that, and for us to be able to come together to lean on each other and support you in that process, and for you to support others throughout that as well. And Sydney, did you have anything you wanted to weigh in on?
Hello. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, first of all, for hosting this space. I'm excited to meet with you all monthly. I have a class that I need to get to, but yeah, this is something that I'm really focused on. I don't have children yet, but I want to be prepared for that. And I have nieces, I have nephews, I have family. I have a lot of responsibility in my family, and so I'm just preparing myself for all the things that are coming up. So thank you again. I have to head out, but I'm so grateful for the space. I'm excited to get to know all of you.
I'm grateful for you being here. And so, each of you are, as a part of your registration, are able to send this video to the people in your lives that you want to watch it. So I'll make sure you get the playback, and you can send it to those cousins or whoever has the children that you want to see this. Enjoy your class.
Okay, perfect. Bye, love you. Okay, bye, everyone. Yeah.
I love it. Okay. Ani, whenever you're able to, you're welcome to unmute.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. They're still hanging on me, so it might be loud. But I do have a question. When you were explaining the family tree, how does that work? Because I'm not connected to much of my family, or if any. So I'm just trying to understand like the importance of that. And I know my children will be on there, but that's probably it.
And that's fine. Like, if that's true, then that's fine. The
Okay.
reason for it is, for example, like, if there are other people involved, like the person you would want to be the guardian of your children, we've been discussing potentially what that looks like. That might be included, because family, what do they say? What is the phrase? The blood runs thicker than water, but water.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
But
I know.
not of the water of the womb. Right. So it's like most phrases like that have two parts and people don't know it, but like the blood runs thicker than water, but not as thick as the water of the womb is the actual second half, but thicker than the water of the blood of the womb. I don't remember the phrasing. What it really means is that people think it means that, like, stick with your family, but what it actually means is that, yeah, the blood runs thicker than the water, but the water of the spirit is thicker than the water of the womb. I don't remember. Regardless, what it's actually saying is basically our chosen family or our spiritual family is more powerful than our biological family. Like, what? That's what that means? Like, the jack of all trades is the master of none, but always better than the master of one. It's like, oh, that's the second half of that. We think it means the opposite, but it means something different. So whatever, I don't have to go into it. The point is that, to answer your question, right, ADHD brain, got it. You could put your children here. You could put the guardian if you wanted to. The main reason for it is, even if we're not close to our family, they might have assets that we will inherit once they pass away, or that we might inherit. And so planning for that is important. Like, my dad's was basically estranged from his father for a very long time. My dad's dad kicked him out when he was freaking 15. Like, never did he probably think that he would be with his brother and his sister right now, literally as I speak these words, with his dad in a wheelchair as he's on the way out, and they were able to do a lot of healing work, right? My dad's staying at his beach house right now. That house is gonna go somewhere. Will it go straight to my dad? I don't know. Like, if that's some of the conversations I'm having with my family right now. So it's very interesting timing, because here I am hosting a webinar for all of us to actually have these plans in place, while simultaneously being an anchor for my father, who's like dealing with these things for a generation before him that didn't have these things very organized. Literally, my aunt is the executor of the will and the estate, but the will and the estate is in a lockbox at the bank right now. My grandpa's is in hospice, and you can't get into the lockbox at the bank unless the account owner goes into the bank. You think that man's gonna leave the hospice house to go to the bank? Like, what? This is what I'm talking about when we're planning, right? Like, these are the things we can think of in advance. So I'm giving that as an example, because even though we're not very close, he has assets that are going to go somewhere because he has some type of plan in place. So they're not going to just go to probate court. Where they go, I'm not sure, but that's part of doing the exercise, is like understanding and knowing. And even if you're not going to engage in those conversations with your family, at least having the awareness that like something is going to happen at some point. So if there is closeness at any point that ends up happening, the conversation might be able to be opened up. Does that help answer the question?
Yes. So now I have another question. So
That's the
with
point.
like my parents, for example, I know that they're gonna have assets to pass down, even though it's been like exchanged and things are building and things are healing and it's fine, but it's like, do I put them above me?
That's a good
I
question.
just
So the roots, you could do it however you want to. I personally would look at it more like they're your roots, because they're your ancestors. So that's what we look at from like the root perspective. I don't know
okay,
if their parents are alive, but if they are, that person might go here, right?
okay,
And mom and dad could go here. And then it would
yeah,
be brother, sister, you, right?
okay,
Or brother, sister, you, and nobody, or you and the guardian, or you and the father of the child, however you want to put it, right?
hmm
And then it might be a little bit different, but like your brother and sister don't have kids, so it could be Zayla and it could be
hmm
Jason, right? And then
hmm
nobody's at the top yet because they're not around,
I
but
don't have children. Okay.
we're creating this now, but in 20 years, that could be a very different conversation, right?
Hmm
Like,
hmm
have you seen your son's eyes? Like, he's gonna have kids one day. Like, so like planning this now is understanding grandma and grandpa's assets go to someone in your lineage. Someone in your lineage is responsible for them. Your assets go to your children. Their assets end up going to, whoever. And so planning ahead is what like this exercise is for. Are there
Okay.
other questions about any of the technical things we discussed during the beginning part of the call from anybody?
No, that's all for me.
Okay, cool. Are there any comments, feedback, anything that anyone has on their heart space?
Your hair looks fabulous.
Thank you. It's the Revlon thing. I can't stop playing with it.
It's so long. It's grown so
How
much.
long? I have a question for each of you. How do you feel that this structure resonates? Like, do you feel like being able to refer people would be helpful to you? Because that's the only reason I decided to put it together.
I don't look at it as being helpful to me. I look at it as being helpful to them. Just knowing, like, I had a conversation with someone the other day that was like talking because someone I worked with passed away and we didn't know if they had life insurance. And so I was like, oh, I know someone that can help them. So it's more of that,
Yeah.
less to do with me.
Okay.
So
As long as you think it's helpful for someone, that's the whole point, because that was the reason why
yeah.
I designed it. What are you
Yeah.
thinking in the
And
lineage?
it could be from any state, or are you still only
Yes,
Florida or
that's the beauty of it. So
okay.
with life insurance, I'm licensed. I can get licensed anywhere, but I'm currently licensed in Florida, California, and New York. But
Okay.
that's with the insurance side of things. I can help people create a will and a trust in all 50 states.
Okay.
That's another, I'm glad you asked that because another perk of working with us is that it could be from anywhere. Whereas if they work with an estate lawyer, they have to be barred in that state. So our partnership with wealth.com is all 50 states of the United States for this foundation planning. And then life insurance is a different conversation. But if anyone anywhere needed my help and was like wanting to work with me, I would just get a license where they live. That's not a big deal. But they are different conversations. But it's great.
Okay. I do have another question. I'm sorry, they're just coming
Oh,
to
that's
me.
great. Like literally open dialogue. Go.
So as far as trust, that goes with like assets and things that we put into the trust that protects us from, say, taxes and things like that here. And do you offer like offshore trusts or does it have to be within the United States?
That's a really great question. I'm going to say let's dive deeper into that one-on-one.
Okay.
And in future conversations, the tax benefits are things that we'll have like as a topic of conversation. Alexis is probably going to weigh in on some of those things in the future as well, which I'm excited about. And that's something that we can definitely discuss and like look into specific use cases. That's a great question for sure.
Okay. Yeah, because I just know that that's what I want for my future, and I like also want to help my parents set that up too, because I know it would help them. But yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really, really great question. I know, and that's like in the very beginning when I was talking about bursting the bubble too, like autonomy and decentralization largely means no longer being enslaved to a governmental system. And
Yeah.
that's what these processes can help us do, is give us the kinds of
Mhm.
independence that are our birthright, you know?
But
So
essentially, like big picture is creating our own family bank, right?
absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
I want to be able to within, the next decade, knock on wood, like be able to have a family office that we're all operating out of and like my
Mhm.
own firm. And also,
Compound vibes.
would you say
Compound vibes.
compound vibes upon compound? I mean, we're compounding today, honey. That happens in
Mhm.
my sleep. That's great. I don't want it just for myself. I want it for all of us. And, when it comes to citizenship and
Diplomatic.
diplomatic community, which reminds me, I have a phone call to return to somebody who called me we talk about these things. But yeah, I mean, building all of these things, this is the first of many of these conversations, which is like so sexy. I love it. The kitty cat. So cute.
Yes, I could.
Oh, and it's officially 1 hour on the clock, so that's the time I have allotted. But if there are further questions or comments, concerns, anything like that, please go ahead and voice them now. Otherwise, I feel content. How does everyone else feel?
Good. Just want to say thank you for putting this together.
Yes, thank you.
Pleasure. My absolute pleasure to serve. It's like the most out of left field calling. I never would have thought, but here I am, and I'm so grateful to be able to be that girl. Like, we are doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you and your energy and your knowledge and your words. And Zayla wants to say hi.
Sayla, did you do it again?
She thinks you can see her. She's nodding yes.
She thinks I can see her. Did you get cuter?
Yeah.
Wait, I have to pin you. Hold on. Oh my God. Spotlight for everyone.
Oh my gosh.
I can't do better.
Wow.
So perfect. Megan, did you have anything you were gonna say?
I was just gonna say thank you, and it was
love
great
you
meeting
all.
everyone.
Thank you. There will be more. All right. Doses. Put them up, put them up.